Nipmuc, Princess Dancing Star, and other members of the Pokanoket Nation. We want to thank Senior Minister Dale Azevedo and Associate Minister Brendan Curran for hosting our program tonight, and special thanks to custodians Paul Zizek and John Cordero for setting up the room for us. Members of Barrington Interfaith Partners have name tags on, so feel free to talk to us about our program if you'd like more information about us. Second.
Thank you. Tanishka, that's hello in my language. I want to thank the Interfaith Partners for having us here this evening. It's an honor for us to take and come and give you a little presentation about the history of our tribe. My name is William Guy, as she has said, and I am the Sagamore of the Council of Seven, Royal House, Pokanoket tribe of the Pokanoket Nation. My traditional name is Nipmuc, which is Winds of Thunder in our language. The first recorded expeditions to lands within the Pokanoket territories was by a Portuguese captain named Miguel Cordeiro. And he came here in 1500, and then in 1502 I think he came here. In 1524, Giovanni Verrazzano, whom that Newport Bridge is named after, came here. He sailed into the Narragansett Bay, then the Mount Hope Bay, and he recorded a latitude of 41 degrees 40 north, which put him right parallel to the seat of the Massasoit, which is in Bristol, Rhode Island, where the Heffernan Museum is. They call it the seat of Philip. And he recorded in his log about the inhabitants of the land here. And he said they were the most goodliest people he had ever seen, because they were always lifting their hands and praising and giving praise to the Creator. So in tradition, in keeping with that tradition, in our tribe, we always start off with a song praising our Creator, or we may start off with a prayer praising our Creator. In this case here, the Heartbeat of Pokanoket, which is the name of our drum, are going to be doing praise to the Creator in our language, and then they'll do it in English. And this is Tabane Uchi. Take it away, Heartbeat. Sachem from Anawan's line, and he's going to take and do the tobacco prayer in our language.
Oh. Again, we want to welcome everyone here today, this evening. My name is Harry Hawk Edmonds, Sachem of the Pokanoket tribal nation. In the language, Quanunin is Hawk. And I got that name playing basketball for East Province High School back in the 50s. I had a hawk eye and the students started calling me the Hawk. So Quanunin in the language, the Algonquin language that we spoke back in the day. What I'd like to do, well, many times I'm asked, do you speak your language when I'm at a powwow or at a native function? And for those of you who don't know, our language was taken from us. During the King Philip's War of 1675, 1676, my people were deprived from speaking their language. We had to assimilate and adapt the ways of the settlers in order to survive. We fought that war to save and preserve our way of life and to save our land. So I took it upon myself to learn the sacred tobacco prayer in my language, the Algonquin Nipmuc language that we spoke back in the day. Although we spoke in many different dialects, our people were able to communicate and understand one another. So this sacred tobacco prayer is about honor and respect, which is the native way. We were honorable people and respectful people. We honored the Creator, Mother Earth, Aki. So what I'd like to do, for those of you who can stand, I'd like you to stand, remove your hats, and join hands with the person standing next to you. Make a connection. And I will offer this prayer, also in English language, so you've understood what I've said. It's called Metacom. I pray. I will begin. Katatuit, numagni, owitamog. Aki numagni, owitamog. Okamas. Nupashad numagni, owitamog. Uchichi, kiriasu. Nupawas numagni, owitamog. Tubatni anoin. Numagni, witamog, otiu u. Nashikaki. Wampanayu. Soanayu. Patanayu. Nanamayu. Tubatni anoin. Nuachi, wani. Nitampog. Nate, Pamaniniche. Nate, Pamampachig. Pakanashimwag. Metaquashka Maskutash. Nemosag. Aquitianamuk. We, Chininamacheg. Atuk. Musk. Makwashin. Tunapasag. Massasoit. Katantawit. Numagni. Owitamog. Oh. Great Spirit, I offer this tobacco. Mother Earth, I offer this tobacco. Grandmother Moon, I offer this tobacco. Grandfather Sun, I offer this tobacco. I thank you. I offer this tobacco to the four directions. To the east, to the west, to the south, to the north. I thank you pick it up. Thank you. Aho.
Sagamore of the affiliated tribes of New England, and I am the Superior Chief of FANA, which is the Federation of Aboriginal Nations of America, in which capacity I represent over 6,000 Indians down the East Coast all the way to the state of Virginia, from New England to the state of Virginia. I am the 10th generation great-grandson of the Massasoit Osamequin, who welcomed the pilgrims to this country. I am the 9th generation great-grandson of Metacom. You know him historically as King Philip, of the King Philip Wars. That was the Massasoit son. And I am the 6th generation great-grandson of Simeon Simons. And Simeon Simons was George Washington's hand-picked bodyguard. When George Washington came to Patchogue, Connecticut to take over the revolutionary forces, Simeon Simons was out there wrestling with all his men, and George Washington called him in. He wanted to know who he was. And he told George Washington that his past was a closed book. He couldn't talk about it. So he went with George Washington that day, and he became a Continental soldier. Received a pension from the United States government as a Continental soldier, served under 3 officers, 2 captains with George Washington. They left, but he always stayed with George Washington, and until the end of the war, and he went with George Washington to live for 2 years before coming back here to Griswold, Connecticut. Simeon Simons, as my parents always told me when I was a kid, you see that Indian in the picture with George Washington crossing the Delaware? That Indian in the boat is your great-grandfather, 6th generation. Simeon Simons is also on the bicentennial coin of the town of Griswold, Connecticut, 200-year celebration of this country as a country. And on that coin is a seal of Griswold on one side, and on the other side are 2 men riding horseback of George Washington and Simeon Simons. I tell you this because Simeon Simons is King Philip's great-grandson. This is the portrait that hangs in the Griswold Town Hall. This is George Washington, my great-grandfather, Simeon Simons. And, yeah, that's the portrait. That hangs in the Griswold Town Hall. Originally, it hung in the New London Town Hall. And then, after years of being there, the family requested that it go back to Griswold to be hung in there. That's my mother's line. That's the Simon Whedon line. On my father's side, I come down from Anawan. Now, Anawan was a head Painisi warrior for the Pokanoket tribe and nation. He was a head Painisi warrior for Osamequin, who was the Massasoit who welcomed the pilgrims to this country. And he was also the head Painisi warrior for King Philip, or Metacom, or Metacom, however you want to call him, during the King Philip War. Now, during the King Philip Wars, you can understand that this man must have been quite old. Well, he was in his 80s. When they captured him in Rehoboth, he was in his 80s. That was King Philip's uncle. So, this gentleman here, this is my first cousin on my father's side. He is the chief from Anawan's line in our tribe. I have a chief from Quaboag's line. Quaboag was the Massasoit's brother. I have a chief from Amy's line. Amy was King Philip and Wamsutter's sister. So each line in our tribe, there's a chief that represents them. Massasoit is a title. A lot of people think Massasoit is his name. That's a title. It means a great leader. The Massasoit was the great leader of the largest Indian nation in colonial America. There was no nation larger than the Pokanoket nation. A lot of people say, well, we never heard of Poka. What? Poka who? But Pokanoket was an ancient civilization which had over 60 tribes, bands, and clans. And when the English came to this new world, this was the largest Indian nation here. It was during the King Philip War that the word Pokanoket was outlawed, and they started calling us Wampanoag. Wampanoag is probably more familiar with you, but Wampanoag is not a tribe, it's a nation. All right? And so basically, the English tried to expunge the word Pokanoket from the dictionary. And if you were a male, 14 years of age or older, and you said you were Pokanoket, they could kill you on sight. So you didn't say you were Pokanoket. You said you were Wampanoag. Even in my mother's time, me coming up in the 40s, it wasn't fashionable to be Indian. But everybody knew my family in Providence, and my mother's family knew my father's family. So they knew who we were, and we couldn't hide it. Now my mother and father's birth certificate, they don't even do it on their marriage certificate. It says right on it, Indian. They don't even do that anymore. If you try to get that copy, they won't do it for you unless you have the original. They'll tell you we don't do that. And I've gone through these things with them. When the English came here, their original destination was supposed to be Jamestown, Virginia. And of course they missed that. They ended up in Provincetown. They didn't like I guess they didn't like the landscape there, and they set sail again. And as they went to Nauset country, they were being fired on by the Nauset Indians, and they finally landed at Plymouth Rock. And when they landed at Plymouth Rock, I guess a month or so later, they were there all that time before they were approached by an Indian who was from the Abenaki Nation. His name was Samoset. And Samoset was a Sagamore of that nation, Today that nation is in Maine. At that time there was no Maine, that was all Massachusetts. So he greeted them, welcome Englishmen, and to their surprise, he wondered, how does this guy know English? And he told them, he said, I know someone that speaks the language even better than I do. He said, I'll go and get them. And, you know, it was the land of Massasoit. He brought the Massasoit, and he brought Tisquantum back with him. And they write his name Squanto, but his name was Tisquantum. Squanto stayed with them, taught them how to take and farm the land, how to fish, and things of that nature. He had permission from the Massasoit to do that. But the reason why the Norses were firing on the English is because years earlier, Squanto and Samoset were taken prisoners to England, and that's where they learned the language. They were tricked on board these ships, and they were taken to England. And so this is why they knew the language, and this is why the Norses were firing arrows at them as they came down the shores of Cape Cod. Soams. This is Soams. Originally, Soams was all of Rehoboth, Swansea, Seacon, East Province, but East Province was actually Seacon then, there was no East Province. Barrington, Warren, Bristol. This was the territory of the Massasoit. In 1747, Massachusetts ceded what is now present-day Soams to Rhode Island, and Barrington, Warren, Bristol became Barrington, Bristol County, Rhode Island. That at one time was Bristol County, Massachusetts. So this is the land of the Massasoit. Our territories are far more extensive than that. A lot of people know of lands here in this area, Wampanoag all the way down to the Cape, Martha's Vineyards Island, Elizabeth Island, Patience and Prudence Island, Newport, Jamestown belonged to the Narragansetts. But what a lot of people don't know is that our territories went all the way up to New York State. We went all up to southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, and Schaghticoke Falls, which is just side of the Hudson River. And that's why when you go up to Mount Monadnock in New Hampshire, you have the King Philip Trail. It was our territory. And the reason why our land and territories were so vast is because the Massasoit was married to the Queen of the Nipmucs. And that was basically Nipmuc territory. And we're talking, you know, the nations there. He was married to the Queen of the Quaboag Nipmuc nation, and his father-in-law was Nadawanha, or National, or the other name they called him was Old Ancient. And he was good friends with the Massasoit, and he counseled the Massasoit and some of his exploits. But in 2000, when we went to Brookfield, Mass, 2000, I think it was 2000, they were celebrating their 350th anniversary as incorporated as a town. The town of Brookfield, Mass, West Brookfield, Mass. This is where Quaboag is. It's in that area there. And the Massasoit was the acknowledged head of that territory there, of that nation. And actually in 1661, his son, Warm Sutter, fought Uncas over the Nipmuc, and it's written in their history, in their archives, and also in the archives of Brown, Harvard, Yale, that Warm Sutter said, the Nipmuc belonged to me. I fought Uncas over summer of 1661. So that's why our territories went all the way up into that northern sphere there to New York State. And in our history, we don't talk about the white buffalo. We have the stories of the three mountains. And the one mountain is Mount Hope here, which is in Bristol, which at one time was the highest point in Rhode Island. They took something like 75 to 100 feet off of that. During the 50s, they made a Nike site there. There was a Nike site at the top of Mount Hope. We don't call that Mount Hope, we call that Pokanoket. Pokanoket in our language means lookout or Pokanoket. That prefix Po When I say Metacom, it means Metacom of Pokanoket, and that's what the prefix Po is for. That's what the Po in front of my name is for. Winds of Thunder of Pokanoket. So we have the story of the three mountains, and that is the mountain of the past. That's where King Philip was killed. The mountain of the present is Mount Wachusett, which is in Massachusetts, and the mountain of the future is Mount Monadnock, which is in New Hampshire. That's where the King Philip Trail is. So we would send smoke signals from Mount Hope, and on a clear day, you can see Mount Wachusett with the naked eye. You don't need field guys, you can see with the naked eye, and we send smoke signals from here to there, and during the King Philip War, all the way up to Mount Monadnock, because the tribes from New York State were coming down, even though Philip pulled a pretty rotten deal on them because he killed some of their warriors and tried to make them think it was the English that did it, and because he was soliciting their help. And so they weren't going to help him, but I guess they had to change their heart. But they got as far as Mount Monadnock, and they learned that Philip was dead. And so they turned around, they didn't come down. The Massasoit was responsible for signing the first treaty with the colonists ever. It lasted 54 years. And he had mostly relatives that signed those treaties. Most of the chiefs that signed that treaty were from the Nipmuc nation, believe it or not. It was Nanawanha. Of course, Nanawanha, the nation, the Quaboag nation, most of the chiefs were his sons, his nephews, or his grandsons. Because like I said, they called them old ancient. And if you look at the signatures of the people on it, you'll find that they didn't come from here on this side, but they came from up north. And the only Pokanoket I saw in there was Quaboag, which is the Massasoit's brother. In 1976, the village of Patchogue paid tribute to our last chief. Some of you older people here might have heard of Princess Redwing. No? Well, Princess Redwing was our last chief because of the fact that the law of saying you were Pokanoket, there weren't any males that were chief in our tribe after Philip. We had mostly female chiefs. Of course, we had female chiefs in that time also because we had Nipmuc, who was the squaw sachem of Pokanoket, and then we had Massasoit out there in Little Compton, and that was a Massasoit's cousin. She was a woman chief. But we had a lot of women chiefs, and some of the women were more feared than the men. Okay, but so Princess Redwing, and this is a picture of Princess Redwing, and she was a storyteller and historian, and she has a lot of accolades behind her name, but she died in 1988. This was our last woman chief. I'm the first male chief in Philip's line since he was killed in 1676. We had male leaders, but we didn't have male chiefs. And in order to be a chief in the Pokanoket tribe, the head chief, you have to come from Philip's line. So you can't come from Quanto's line or Anawan, you have to come direct from Philip's line. And this was my mother's first cousin. In 1976, the village of Patchogue up in Connecticut, they honored my mother's family when they put Simeon Simons on that bicentennial coin. They had my mother's whole family there. In 1978, Governor J. Joseph Garrity declared June 23rd, 1978 as Princess Redwing's Day in the state of Rhode Island. And I'm looking for that document. I have it here. Whatever it is. This is the official document. And I just want to read this because I've had people say to me, well, how can you, you Narragansett and you say you're Pokanoket, and well, you could be Irish and English, and you could, why can't I belong to more than one tribe? The federal government tells these people who have federal recognition that they can only belong to one tribe because that's so that they can't double dip into what, you know, what is being provided for them. But if you stop and think about it, my heritage, I come down from Narragansett, Pokanoket, Pokanoket, Nipmuc, and I can tell you why. The Massasoit's father was Narragansett. The Massasoit's mother was Queen Nipmuc's daughter. So she was a princess. Massasoit married a Nipmuc. There comes the Nipmuc. The Massasoit's two sons married two Pocasses. One son married Metacom, who was a Squanto of the Pocasses, and Metacom married Wanda Taluski, who was my grandmother, great-grandmother, and she was a sister of Metacom. So there was two brothers that married two sisters. So that's, what, 5 tribes that I'm in now already? So I mean, you know, but I had this said to me, and they said, well, no, she's Narragansett. Yeah, but she always recognized her Pokanoket background first. So I just want to read this first line of this proclamation by J. Joseph Garrity. And that's, you know, I can put my glasses down to see this. Whereas Princess Redwing is from the 7 Crescents, Royal House of Pokanoket. That's the first line. Because any check that she received from the government always said on it from the 7 Crescents. And she always recognized her Pokanoket lineage before the Narragansett lineage. Although she was a historian for the Narragansett tribe for years, she was a historian and storyteller, and she named over 1,000 Indian children. She gave them the Indian name. So this is the act that I've had to follow as the chief. And when I talk about Princess Redwing having a lot of accolades beside her name, she was a member of the Committees of the United Nations in its infancy. She was the first Indian to speak or address the United Nations in 1946. She had recorded for the Voice of America. She was given the name of Squaw Sachem by the New England Council of Indian Chiefs. She has a doctorate in Human Affairs from the University of Rhode Island. And she is also listed on the International Register of Profile 2,000 Notable Americans, the Book of Honor, and the World's Who's Who of Women. So this is who I follow as chief. And I remember, I shouldn't tell the story, but I never wanted to be the chief. My elders made me the chief, all right? But this is who I follow. And she is in the Rhode Island Heritage Hall of Fame. In 1978, she was inducted into the Rhode Island Heritage Hall of Fame. And she represented herself quite well. She had audiences with Queen Elizabeth, and she was personal pen pal with Eleanor Roosevelt. So those of you who don't know, I figure some of you might have heard of Princess Redwing. If you go downtown Providence, there's an Indian princess mural drawn on the wall up there. It says the Narragansett Princess. That's Princess Redwing. She was the last chief of our tribe before I became chief. So I know you're probably wondering, you know, what are you people doing now? Well, we're the tribe that had the protests up there at the Heifer Museum in 2016. In 2015, I filed a constructive and public notice of the Pokanoket Tribal Trust Charter with the Director of the Tribal and Intergovernmental Affairs of the U.S. Department of Energy. According to the International Hague Trust Treaty Convention, thus establishing a trust-to-trust relationship with the United States government. We never relinquished any of our Aboriginal rights. Therefore, we never are going to look for federal recognition to be recognized by the federal government, because we discovered that the laws were there to protect us all along. We were just ignorant of the fact. And this is why I filed this public trust for the tribe. And most of what we have goes into that trust because this is a country of trusts and corporations. And basically what it has done for us is it's given us the ability to use the laws that were already there to protect us. We're using their laws to get our rights. So to become federally recognized in this country, it's like taking away your Aboriginal rights. And they make you a Native American. They call them Native Americans. We don't consider ourselves Native Americans. We consider ourselves American Aborigines. So all these laws that are written in the Constitution are written for the American Aborigine. This government knows who my family is. They know who I am. Basically, anything that we have approached them for, and right now I'm working with Social Security and the census people, and everything we've done so far, they've told us we've entitled to, but yet when it gets up to Washington, even somehow it gets held up. So I am trying at this time to bring our people back to that place of honor that we once had in this country. And this government is, they're relinquishing things reluctantly, but everything that we're doing is according to the law. That as a Native American, they've actually taken away your Aboriginal rights and made you an Article 4 citizen. In other words, if you were born in this country, you're a Native American. Well, that's what they did to the Indians that have that status. I am a capital C citizen. I come under Article 3. I don't sit before a jury of my peers. I sit before 3 Article 3 judges. You go to court, you sit before a jury of your peers, 12 people. Those laws, they do not apply to me, and I come under Article 3. So basically, this is what I've done for my tribe. And presently, I'm in the process of negotiating the land up there at Heifer with Brown, who wanted to give it all to all the tribes, but it doesn't belong to all the tribes. Some will belong to Pokanoket, and they know this. We've invited 15 tribes, and only 2 of them came to the meeting. We had a mediator there. We chose the retired state police, Curran O'Donnell, from the state police. And I don't know if that scared them, but we knew who we are. And we know who has stolen our history to get federal recognition. They're actually identity theft, the things that are going on. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because I was told that you probably want to know a little about what we're doing today. And that's what I'm doing. I'm bringing my people back to that place of honor and to their rightful place in this country. And having fun doing it. At this time, I think we're going to take and have another selection. After which our tribal storyteller will take over.
Pokanoket tribe, but I'm also the tribal storyteller. I'm just, gosh, the tribal storyteller. Do you know I can tell stories for hours on end? But I don't, but that's why they put me up last. Because I won't relinquish the mic, but you know, we have stories about everything. And actually, you know, my people, our history is an oral history. And things that have been passed down orally from generation to generation to generation. And, you know, people say, well, how do you know what you know is true? And I say, well, he told me. And my father says, well, my mother told me. And she wouldn't lie to me. And his mother said, well, my mother told me. And it goes back and back and back. And you know, it's funny because, you know, we did have to give some information to the federal government. And one of the things, you know, because they just say, well, you know, I know it's your oral history, but you know, you need to prove me. You need to prove it, you know, to us. We want you to do it our way. We want to see it on paper. We're from Missouri, you know, show us. So we said, okay. And so one of the things that it was always passed down through my family, is that Massasoit was poisoned. And history doesn't tell it like that. They just said, he got sick and he died. And my family said, no, he was poisoned. And do you know, we were able to prove that to the government. We actually went back to the ship records from England and found the order of rat poison that came over for a rat, one rat. So, for a pest. So our oral tradition, it's strong. It's a very strong, you know, oral tradition. So, do you guys know what this is? Turtle? Yeah, well, yeah, you think it's a turtle? Look, it's my pocketbook. It's my pocketbook. Yeah. But, you know what? Our people, we respect it. We respected what the Creator gave to us. And we used everything that the Creator gave to us. We didn't waste. So, yes, this was a turtle. But it is now being used as a pocketbook. But you know what? I just want you to notice something about the turtle. That one of the things that we used it for, other than a pocketbook or a rattle or a shield, one of the things that we used it for was our calendar. Because if you count the squares around the turtle's shell, we call each square a sun-up, or a day. And then all of the days equals one of these bigger squares, which is a moon. There's 13 of these bigger squares because it takes 13 moons to create a great sun-up, or 1 year. Now, for each of these 13 moons, do you know, we had a Thanksgiving. We were thankful for something. So you guys have one Thanksgiving? Shame on you. Our people had 13. We still don't celebrate all 13 of them, but there's 5 of them that are still very significant to our people. We have the maple Thanksgiving, we have the green bean, we have the harvest, we have the cranberry, and we have the strawberry. I'm going to tell you a story. Just one story. We have a story for every moon, but I'm going to tell you the story for the strawberry moon, or the strawberry Thanksgiving, because that is the most celebrated one for my tribe, for my people. We have a really big powwow right down on the water, and it's beautiful. So, many, many moons ago, there was a brother and a sister, They lived together with their grandmother, and seeing that they were a whole generation away from her, they were very close together. They did everything together. They played together, they worked together, and they prayed together. Now one day, the brother and the sister, they quarreled. They got so upset with each other that they turned their backs, one toward the other. And they walked. The little boy walked off towards the west with the sun at his back, and the girl walked off towards the east with the sun at her face. And by, the little boy, he felt sorry that he had quarreled with his sister. And he asked the Creator to turn him around so that he might make his way back and find her and make peace with her. And the sister, she felt sorry as well, and she asked the Creator to turn her around to make her way back to her brother, but she asked for one more thing. She asked that the Creator would give her something to give to her brother as a sign of peace. And so he did. And when she turned around and she looked down, all about her feet in the grass and in the straw were these bright red berries. Do you know what kind of berries those were? Oh, you guys heard this story before? There were strawberries. And so she picked them up. She gathered as many as she could, and she walked. And by, she met up with her brother, and she gave the strawberries to her brother as a sign of peace. So ever since that day, our people have been given strawberries to each other as a sign of peace. But there's something important I want you to know. When you do this, you have to have peace in your heart. You have to forgive everyone for anything that they've ever done to you. It's kind of like a new year. Everyone gets a clean slate. So this is in June that we do this. We dance, we celebrate, we give strawberries to one another, and we eat strawberries. But you have to have that heart that I was telling you about, that heart of forgiveness. Because if you don't, and you eat a strawberry, and you have hardness and unforgiveness in your heart, you just might choke on that strawberry. And I want you to remember that. So, that is the way of my people. We are a forgiven people. We are a thankful people. And so I thank you for having me. Aho.
He's 83 now, 84. 84. My brother will be 84 this year. Okay. So we want you to come and join us, and we'll get in between you. This is a dance that we do a powwows. When they call inter-tribe, or they'll call, the MC will tell you that everybody is welcome to come, and you can get in there and dance this dance. So, all right. And we'll have questions and answers after. Yeah, questions and answers after this. Okay?
Massasoit. I've got 4 daughters. I played basketball for East Providence High School, was all-state, inducted into East Providence High School Hall of Fame, and I didn't get my son. I got 4 girls, but I got 3 grandsons from my 4 daughters and 1 granddaughter. Now, Anawan, he was heard to cry out in battle when he's fighting against the settlers to save the land. Ayutash! 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 Stand firm and fight. Don't give up. So when I talk to my girls and my grandkids, I tell them, Ayutash, when I finish talking to them. Don't ever give up. Ayutash. Oh.
I don't know how many people from Barrington. Are there any Barrington people here? Well, okay. Well, this is my daughter. I have 5 grandchildren that went to this Barrington school system. And I don't know if you know the Brown family. Yeah, DJ Brown, or Matthew Brown, or Drew Brown, Ryan and Morgan Brown. They were quite the athletes going through here. And I thought maybe you might have heard the name. But I had 5 different things. Pardon? Yeah. Any other questions? Yes. No?
I just wanted to thank everyone for coming tonight. My name's Brendan. I'm the associate minister at the church, and you said thank us for having you. I guess on behalf of all of us, I should say thank you for having us. And I also would like to thank the Barrington Interfaith partners for bringing us all together, and to all of you who came to us tonight. It's been just an incredible honor. Thank you for being with us, sharing history, traditions. It's been an enlightening joy for all of us tonight. And so please stay, socialize. Oh, and I did also want to say, we've been at a powwow together, and I won, when I was in college at the Harvard University powwow, I actually won a choker for the best non-native dancer, so it was nice to strut my stuff tonight. That's proud. No, I didn't go to Harvard, I just lived in Cambridge.
He's a white fox.